Well guys, we are back for another episode of the Liberal Asshole Show, episode 51. So, what are today's topics?
Russo-Ukraine war update, Putin has terminal cancer, more mass shootings in America, Johnny Depp-Amber Heard trial, second of talking or dying, the wrong reason to oust Rashida Tlaib, and Biden doing student debt relief.
Alright, so of course, as we're doing for several months, we have the update on the Russo-Ukraine wars. I have both maps loaded up, and I was just looking at it before we started, and once again, not much changes, but unfortunately Russia does seem to have gained more territory in the Donbass area, but down near Kherson, it seems Ukraine's been pushing back even more.
Yeah.
Like, the whole lines from the 2 weeks since we did have changed completely. Some areas Russia's gained, some areas Ukraine's gained. Overall, though, unfortunately, it looks like Russia still has gained more, but it's still largely stalemate in a mixed bag. So, What do you have to say about this?
A little annoying that, I love that, like, Jacob Hickey's like, Ukraine collapses every, week. And it's like, dude, if Ukraine collapsed as often as you said it would, the Russian army would be in Moldova and Georgia right now.
But that's CIA State Department propaganda you're talking about, remember?
Yeah, we know. The tankies talk about the CIA like Nazis talk about Jews.
Yep. Whoa, Harry, we'll have a meltdown here in that one.
Good.
So, there's not much really to say about this. I'm honestly starting to wonder if, since it's now being largely stalemate, if we should maybe not really talk about that much unless something really serious happens, because this has been the case the last month or so, really no changes, and there's not really much to talk about. So maybe we might have to consider that very soon, since this largely is becoming a stalemate. So, the only other thing I can think of is, do you think, Ukraine could maybe turn us around or not? You there?
Well, if Putin has terminal cancer, they might be able to turn it around and at least get eventually. But it's one of those things where it's going to be a while before any significant change happens.
Yep, as we can see, even 2 weeks later since we did the last episode, the lines have not really changed that much. That's how much of a snail's pace this has been.
Yeah.
So much for winning in 3 days. Oof!
Rampaging through Ukraine in 3 days, rampaging through Moldova in 1, and rampaging through Georgia in 3.
Alright, so I guess that's it for this topic. But, on to another topic, and this has been a rumor for several months. Is Putin actually have terminal cancer and might die? So, Kyle actually did a video on it, and unfortunately, I wish he didn't pick, if the video loaded, it was the Daily Mail. Ugh, Kyle, not necessarily the best source to get your news. They're up there with, freaking New York Post, for crying out loud, in the silliness. But, let's see what Kyle's video is, because these rumors have been going on for several months, remember?
Alright guys, I have quite a story here. It kind of ties into a previous story that we did about Vladimir Putin allegedly having cancer surgery. Vladimir Putin is given 3 years to live by doctors due to his rapidly progressing cancer, FSB spy claims. So let's go through some of this here. Vladimir Putin has reportedly been given or been warned he has just 3 years to live, as Russian intelligence sources become increasingly worried about their ailing leader. An FSB officer described the Russian president's condition as a severe form of rapidly progressing cancer, as speculation ramped up that Putin was suffering with some form of serious illness amid the invasion of Ukraine. The spies...
Yeah, for all of you who don't know, because I think Kyle's going to talk about, have you seen, the videos, where his feet twitch all the time, or, grabs, the table and stuff like that?
I heard he's got Parkinson's.
Yeah, so that's, he's been acting, really weird, on videos and all that, so you always gotta wonder.
Explained, the wartime leader has no more than 2 to 3 years left, and he is also losing his sight, reports the Mirror. News of the Russian leader's terminal illness emerged as part of a secret message from the Russian agent to fugitive and former FSB agent Boris Karpichkov. The message warned Putin is refusing to wear glasses over fears it would admit a form of weakness.
How is wearing glasses a form of weakness? How? And also, you do know contacts are an option, right? What the fuck? That is so weird and stupid.
And he is now lashing out at his subordinates with uncontrolled fury. I love how I talk for a living, and I don't know how to talk. Like, I can't actually talk. The developments come as news of his deteriorating health continues to leak out of Russia from a Telegram channel which claims to have sources inside the Kremlin. That's kind of weak. A Telegram channel that claims to have sources inside the Kremlin. Putin reportedly underwent successful cancer surgery this month and is recovering following advice from medics that treatment was essential, according to Telegram channel General SBR. This was the source for the other stuff, too. I remember from the previous article we covered where they claimed he had cancer. The news emerged just hours before Putin appeared on state TV meeting with ally Alexander Lukashenko in Sochi, where he was caught on camera awkwardly twisting his feet while the pair sat down for talks.
Yep, that's what I was talking about earlier.
It is the second time Putin has been filmed making the odd movement, which was caught on camera during a meeting with Tajikistan's president a week ago, and comes off the back of rumors that he is suffering Parkinson's. So I've seen that one. I've seen the rumor of Parkinson's, and we covered the one on potential cancer surgery. But now the update I'm giving you, and again, this is all alleged, is he has actual terminal cancer. So let me give you some more. Oh, look at his foot there. Uncontrollably fidgets with his feet amid health rumors. Look at this.
Yeah, moving that foot back and forth.
That doesn't strike me as that much. I'm going to show you in a little bit here the hand thing and let you guys decide. It's a little bit later on in this article. Emamoli Rahman appeared to notice the movement during his meeting with Putin and glanced at the leader's feet, though he did not raise it in conversation. Critics have suggested the twisting motion could be an attempt to cover up the kind of involuntary twitches caused by Parkinson's after Putin was seen shaking his arm and led before another meeting with Lukashenko on February 18th. Since then, he has been seen to grip the arms of chairs and corners of tables in what some believe to be an effort to disguise any shaking. Other spooks have also hinted at the strongman's poor health conditions, warning he was unable to maintain concentration for long periods of time without taking breaks for treatment. Christopher Steele, a former MI6 Russia desk officer, explained Putin was constantly monitored and accompanied by a team of doctors as rumors of a new Kremlin succession plan continue to swirl. I don't know how good that source is, man. And him always having doctors around him, well, he's a notorious, germaphobe and stuff. He had those super long tables to keep people away from him during COVID. You guys remember that? Whispers about Putin's health began at least 2 years ago when he was said to be suffering both Parkinson's and cancer, but have received renewed attention in the wake of his invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin has not commented on the latest allegations of Putin's ill health, but regularly denies he is suffering any kind of difficulties.
Well, of course they're
General
going to deny
SDR wrote last week, on the night of Monday, May 16th to Tuesday, May 17th, Russian President Vladimir Putin underwent a surgical operation. The fact that Putin should be operated on as soon as possible was insisted upon by his attending physicians. According to the doctors involved in the treatment of the president, the operation was successful. We have already talked about the fact that Putin was personally absent from the information space from May 17th to May 19th and was not available even to his inner circle, with the exception of Nikolai Patrushev, Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation. Where's the video of the hand? I saw that earlier. Here we go. Look at his hand. Watch his hand. They'll show it again. Look at that. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
You could barely
so
see
that
it,
is, and that. So look how uncontrollably that's shaking. That is a sign of Parkinson's. It is, and that's something that usually what you do if you have Parkinson's. Look how much that's shaking. His right hand. Usually, if you have Parkinson's, one of the things they do as a strategy to not shake is you grab onto something, you grip something. And so in interviews,
it looked like a hand waving toward him, like, come here.
Again, the speculation is so that he doesn't shake like that because he doesn't want to portray any sort of weakness or illness or anything like that. From May 17th to May 19th, canned pre-production meetings and messages were posted in the information space, and Putin personally held 2 telephone conversations during this time. Amid news of his increasing isolation, the Russian president has also seized control of the military operation in Ukraine, personally handing orders out to generals and struggling to delegate responsibilities.
You don't want to go the path of Nicholas, remember, Putin. You remember what happened in World War I, don't you?
Meanwhile, the head of the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine's Ministry of Defense declared last week Putin is cutting himself off from close contact with his subordinates to avoid any assassination attempts. Looking at some of his manic syndromes, he is afraid to seriously prepare a successor, realizing that in preparation, this successor may want to take the chair a little earlier than Putin himself wants. Major General
or maybe he'll drop dead sooner than you want.
Ukraine's Skaya Pravda. Therefore, he keeps everyone at a certain distance, and he believes that he will rule forever, but it will not be so. So again, that's coming from a Ukrainian source. So they're in the middle of a war against Ukraine. They're invading Ukraine.
Yeah, like always, guys. When at war, never really fully trust either side. They have very good reasons to lie. It's just like we keep talking about, like the casualties they've inflicted or received. Never believe them until after the war and stuff's over, then when they can be independently verified.
Can we? I don't know if you can just take that at face value. Yeah. It comes as a former MI6 chief predicted Putin will be gone by 2023 due to health problems and will not reemerge as the leader of Russia.
Now you gotta wonder, did he mean by the end or the beginning of 2023? Because that's just over 6 months away.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably towards the end.
Persistent rumors of serious ill health for the Russian strongman. One method of moving things on without need for a violent coup would be to place him in a long-term hospital for the incurably unwell, suggested Richard Dearlove. That's not going to happen. All right, we don't need to go.
Well, unless the cancer forces him.
Yeah.
Like
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like, if you're that cancer-ridden, you're pretty much are going to be, like, bedridden or whatever cancer patients have to go through. So, at that point, he would have no choice but to.
Go on with this, but you guys get the point. So, here's the thing. I don't know how accurate this is. I just have no idea.
And like I said, Daily Mail, not a very good source, not to be really trusted.
Not very good.
And I do know that in Western media, here's the general rule in Western media. The bigger an enemy the leader or country is that you're talking about, the less factually accurate and sourced you have to be in your stories. So we see this all the time with North Korea. I mean, there were times where there were rumors that Kim Jong-un was dead, and then he wasn't. Or that, somebody in his inner circle, he assassinated this person, and then 3 days later that person is seen, and they're videotaped, and they're fine. So, and now it is hard to distinguish because they do have insane propaganda coming out of North Korea where they say ridiculous things, and they act like their leaders are demigods. And so that stuff is laughable, and it's a totally authoritarian lockdown country. But that almost makes it even easier to also put fake claims out there. So they're not scrupulous. They don't adhere to high standards when it comes to enemy countries. And now Russia is obviously in that same categorization of like big time enemy country. And so that means you should be a little bit more skeptical about things that come out. Now, having said that, is this a possibility? Yeah, I mean, he's kind of old, What is he, 60?
He's going to be 70 in October. For all of you who don't know, I think he's actually over the life expectancy of men in Russia. Like, life expectancy for Russia never recovered from their high from when it was the Soviet Union. Like, when the Soviet Union collapsed, I kid you not, Russian men, and women too, but more importantly, men lost 10 years off their life expectancy at their peak. Like, that's how bad Russia fell after the Soviet Union collapsed. And life expectancy for men in Russia never climbed back up to its high, which I think was higher than 70, so it might be under 70 now. So, yeah, Putin is over the life expectancy, or at least will be in October.
67 or 70 or something like that. He's getting up there. And the little bits and pieces that you see on video, some of those things I just think, people are sort of overhyping this, and it seems like a normal movement that they're blowing out of proportion. But then other things I see, like that handshake, and as much as it was, and I was like, I don't know, that does seem like that might be some sort of a health issue. And it was reported in a lot of different places that he had surgery. Now, they claim cancer surgery. It may have been some other sort of surgery, but that I saw reported in a number of different places. This is the first time I'm seeing this, and again, it's from the Daily Mail is running it, and it's from that source that claims to have people inside the Kremlin. I just don't know how true it is, but it's certainly possible. I guess I'll leave it up to you guys to determine for yourself, but as I said in the previous segment with something similar, if it is true, that sort of puts a lot more things in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're kind of running out of time, and you want to make a name and a legacy for yourself.
And by the way, Sky News, I actually saw a video on my recommendations feed, but I didn't watch it yet. Supposedly, Putin thinks of himself as Alexander... not him. Peter the Great, I think it was. Which is like one of Russia's famous leaders.
And I'm sure Putin miscalculated because he thought that the pieces were going to fall into place, and if he were to do this, he could annex a large portion of Crimea, and then people would say he returned Russia to its former glory, just like the Russian Empire days. I mean, he literally said in the speech that he gave when he announced the invasion, like, that was his goal. That was his goal. One of it, he's like, we're going to denazify Ukraine. LOL, as if he actually cared about that.
Remember, he thinks that all Ukrainians are Nazis, so it's not a denazification, it's a depopulation.
We kind of want to, we have all these historical gripes against Ukraine, and we're going to restore it to where it should be, which is part of the Russian Empire. So it would sort of put things in perspective if he's trying to, go out with a bang and create a legacy for himself where, Russian nationalists can view him as like our dear leader, build statues and whatnot, and worship. But I don't know. I'll leave it up to you guys. Quite an extreme claim, but at least as of this moment, it doesn't appear to have that much backing. I don't see any other sources really diving into it, so take it for what it is. It's fodder for speculation. It's really interesting, but it's not much else. Hey, y'all, do me a...
And, thing is, even if he did want to, like, take back all of Eastern Europe to rebuild, like, the Russian Empire and all that, like, his legacy is not going to be viewed positively throughout the world, especially among the West. So, if he really wants to try and secure his legacy, he's doing a terrible job at it if he wants it to be positive. And also, before we get into the main topic, I actually looked it up. Apparently, according to a source on Google I looked up, in 2019, life expectancy for Russian men is actually 73 years old, which is actually higher than it was at its peak during the Soviet Union. But I don't know how reliable that is. But it does show like the massive drop it had when the Soviet Union collapsed. Yeah. But even so, Putin is still up there. He's going to be 70, so that's getting up there for their life expectancy if this thing is true. And plus, like I said, this is 2019. I'm sure in the 3 years since, especially with COVID and all that, that's probably going down like it is in America. So, now, on to the main thing. What do you think about this report that Kyle covered?
Okay. Parkinson's? It looks like he's at least in the early stages of Parkinson's. Early to mid. He had the cancer surgery. I don't know about the terminal cancer, but it wouldn't surprise me either way.
I actually looked up another source about the life expectancy for men, and right now, and this one says 68 years, which he is over. So, like I said, not exactly sure. But when it comes to these reports, like Kyle said, you really can't take anything you gotta take everything with a grain of salt. It could just be BS for all I know. But we saw like the videos; those were pretty serious looking. And here's the thing: if he does have terminal cancer, then he's going to die very soon anyway, and in 2 and 3 years, we'll see if that's indeed the case. Or, if he does have cancer, he's not going to probably die instantly, but he'll be, like, dying slowly over time. Like, probably bedridden, stuff like that. So, when that stuff happens, then you know it's actually legit. So, but yeah, of course, that... we're going to have to wait and see on that because we don't know. And who knows, maybe he would be somehow lucky and defy it because people have done that with their life expectancies. Yeah. Anything can happen. Alright, so on to the next topic.
Which would be more mass shootings in America.
So anyways, when we last did the episode, I actually found out new info about the shooting at that school in Texas, about how the cops didn't do anything to stop it, which should lead them to all be fucking fired and replaced, a la defund the police style, which is absolutely pathetic. Shame on them for not doing anything about it. Absolutely disgusting. And of course, to my no surprise, afterwards it happened, we've had, like, I remember a few days ago when I was out, there was like 3 shootings that happened simultaneously in the country, for crying out loud. And there was one again. There was one even at a medical facility, for crying out loud. There's been so many shootings. In fact, I don't know how true this is, but I saw this, I think, on Twitter. Apparently, if this is true, there have been almost 300 mass shootings either across America this year, or even worse, 300 in schools alone. Although I find that a little hard to believe. Almost 300 shootings in America this year in schools alone. Probably more across the country, but that list, America was the only one with over 100 shootings so far this year. The next country only had like 45, and here America was right above number one at almost 300. America number one at shootings, everybody. So impressive. America always number one at the things we should never be number one in. So yeah, absolutely pathetic. As I keep telling you all, I want to maybe give a little bit of defense for like guns rights advocates and point out that sometimes liberals are a little bit silly to say that it's only the guns, because it's not just that. But the gun nuts are also wrong to act like guns are never the problem. They are. So is the mental health, which is their excuse they bring up all the time. But the big thing, as I said last time, the main thing is the gun culture. The gun culture in America is absolutely toxic, and it must change now. Just like other countries that have a whole bunch of guns, like Switzerland. They have as many guns per population, but they don't have those mass shootings because their culture, their gun culture is guns are dangerous things and they must be regulated, and people who have them need to be responsible with them. We don't have that here. It's Wild West mentality. It must go now. Absolutely. And also stop opposing gun control that could work to help people not die as frequently. It's not fucking debatable. And I actually wanted to do a video. I wanted to play a video about the reaction about how the cops didn't do anything at that school shooting in Texas, but I actually wanted to cover this. Fox News says impeach Biden over gun control speech, which is funny.
God, because of course they did.
Which is funny.
They don't want any reason to impeach Joe Biden.
Which is funny within itself, but the actual reason why I picked this video, because Kyle actually showed a poll on how all the gun control policies Americans support and oppose it. I wanted to cover that more instead. So let's get into it and destroy gun nuts once again.
All right, guys. So in Mediaite, we got this video coming from Fox News. They went after Biden for his banal gun reform speech. So let's see what they have to say.
Do you think he hurt his chances with Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats getting a gun deal together?
Republicans were never going to support no matter what.
A partisan political approach.
Yeah, but wait, it is a partisan political issue. It is. It just is.
Yeah, because
the Democrats.
It's only Republicans that are opposing gun reform. It's not their Democrats. So eat shit.
Most of them support one form or another of gun reform. The Republicans do not. And by the way, probably the main reason for that is because they take a tremendous amount of money from the NRA. So they're paid to say, don't do any new gun reform. So it's not, if Biden acknowledges the reality of that, he's just being honest about the nature of what is. It's not like he's making it a partisan issue. It already is a partisan issue.
Do something is not a serious policy, but the actual policies that he listed are extremely troubling. I think it's comforting for simple-minded people.
The policies he listed, by the way, are extremely popular. They're popular, not extremely troubling. And he listed all of the basic ones that you've heard a million times. Universal background checks, ban on high-capacity magazines, stuff like that.
People to think that restricting the natural right to keep and bear arms would solve all of our problems.
The natural right to keep and bear arms. The Second Amendment talks about a well-regulated militia. There is not a personal, individual right to own any and all weapons that you want. That simply does not exist. The word regulated is in the Second Amendment. And all these people are...
Although, to be fair, Kyle, a lot of times when they mean regulate, they mean more like an army than necessarily regulation. That's why there's a massive confliction between that sentence, unfortunately.
Not part of a militia. They're not. So it's just a dishonest framing. She's being dishonest.
that destroying the Constitution would solve our problems. That is.
Guys, let me ask you a question.
Destroying the Constitution.
This 18-year-old held up a bag of dead cats on video, told a number of people, I'm going to do a school shooting. He was called by his acquaintances, not friends because he didn't have any, acquaintances, he was called school shooter because they looked at him and said, you look like the type of person to shoot up a school. Given all those facts, wouldn't it be a great idea to have a red flag law so that if somebody alerts the authorities to those facts, they could go confiscate the guns? Now, I'm not saying you don't have a process. You should have a process where, people come and testify and say, yeah, he said that, and, he held up the cat. Here's the video of him holding up the dead cats. And after the process, you take his guns. But you should be allowed to take his guns, right? Or does an 18-year-old who's obviously mentally unwell murders kittens and puts them in a bag and says things like, I'm going to shoot up a school, does that person still have a right to own a firearm?
A lot of gun nuts in this country would say yes.
If you say yes to that, I can't help you. I just...
And if you think that, then I'm sorry, you're fucking retarded, and you can go eat crow.
I can't help you.
Not true, and we have a natural right of self-defense and to guard against tyranny in the Second Amendment. This is something that makes us America.
You're not gonna beat America with your guns, you fucking idiot. How many times do we have to point this out to you? Stop believing this stupid fantasy.
The guard against tyranny point is always interesting to me, because what are you saying? Are you saying that you want to gun down police officers in the streets? Or you want to gun down the U.S. military? A right to protect against tyranny. Well, who would enforce the tyranny? The tyranny would be enforced by the government. So, what are the armed wings of the government? Well, the police, but that's more local and state, right? Or if it's federal, National Guard, or they might call in the military or something. Do you want to gun down people who are police officers or soldiers? U.S. soldiers. The U.S.
Why, yes, if they disagree with me politically, like January 6th, remember?
It's military. Because the same people who are so rah-rah law and order, rah-rah law enforcement, we love the police, thin blue line, look at my flag. They're like, actually, I reserve the right to murder these people. You got to pick one, man. It's like, and I've seen this before too. You guys may have too. In the wild, bumper stickers. One, don't tread on me. Right next to it, the thin blue line pro-police flag.
You have no idea how many Blue Shield, Blue Lives Matter, and the Gatsby flag there are where I'm at. They are all over the place.
That's literally like saying...
And unfortunately, a lot too, even though we're a part of it, the CSA flag's a lot around here too, which is cringy.
I'm anti-law enforcement, I'm pro-law enforcement. I'm anti and pro-law enforcement. People do not reconcile their own political contradictions, and it drives me fucking crazy. Stop just trying to be part of a group. Yay, I have my friends, and I'm in my group, and we have a subculture, and we believe the same things, and we have, a brotherhood over this. This is so great. I feel welcome. I feel whole. That's where that really comes from. It's not like, let me actually use my mind and independently think it through issue for issue and come to conclusions. They don't do that. People don't do that. Most people don't do that. It's just like cliquish bullshit. And that's what we're seeing here.
And Joe Biden showed that he does not respect the Constitution. He does not support this natural right.
You guys want to impeach him over nothing. You are in no position to say that, so cope.
That really isn't
him for everything and anything, literally.
Oh, and I don't want to hear it from you guys when January 6th happened on your eyes.
Impeachable offense to talk this way against something so foundational to the country.
Impeachable offense. Impeach him because he gave a speech where he supports gun reform that's supported by the entire goddamn country. Guys,
and here is the polls, as we're going to be covering in a minute. How we'll cover
this is from a few years ago. This stuff could be even higher now. Increase mental health funding, 89%. Require background checks for private sales and gun show sales. That would make it universal, 83%. Create a national red flag law, 72%. Require a license before gun purchase, 72%. Ban the sale of high-capacity magazines, 61%. Ban the sale of semi-automatic weapons, 57%. I don't even think he listed all those, but he listed some of those. Now, he's not in favor of a mandatory assault weapon buyback program, which, by the way, is underwater by 1 point, 45%, 46%. And he's not in favor of allowing school teachers to carry guns, but that's only 37%.
So yeah, guys, here's the polls we see. Americans support increase in mental health funding by 89%, which is good. 83% want it to be required to have background checks before you buy guns and end the gun show loophole, which is very common. 83% want that. Yep. That's a good thing. 72% of Americans want a national red flag wall. That's a good policy. Yep. 72% think you should have a license before you can buy a gun. Yes, just like you have to have a license before you can drive a car, you should have a license to prove that you are able to use a gun responsibly. Ban the sale of high-capacity magazines, 61% support. Good policy. 57% ban the sale of semi-automatic weapons. That one, 57% support. That one is a little bit tricky for me. I'm not the smartest with guns, but I'm not exactly sure what those would be, what kind of semi-automatic weapons are, so I don't know about that one. Create a mandatory assault weapons buyback program. I don't support mandatory, but I do support a buyback program, and that one is...
Australia did that again recently.
A buyback program?
Yep, we did another one recently.
And did the right say that was mandatory?
Nope.
Oh, and did they say it was... And did they scream it was gun confiscation, even though it isn't?
No. Because those guys are a little more... Because those guys are a little more intelligent.
So they didn't... So it's not a gun confiscation, correct?
Exactly.
And they're not having a meltdown over it?
No.
I'm actually surprised, because you know how insane they are down there, too. But yeah, 46%... So the plurality majority are against a mandatory assault weapons buyback program. I wonder if it was voluntary, if it would probably be the majority support. And finally, allow school teachers to carry guns. 57% oppose it. Good, because that's stupid. So like all these things on here, almost all of them, the majority of Americans support, and they're good policies. And I'm sorry, but if you disagree with like almost all these, you're just wrong. That's the end of it.
Basically.
And like Kyle said, this is from years ago. And Kyle covered a poll before. We mentioned all the time, like 90% of Democrats, Republicans, gun owners, and even NRA members want some sort of gun reform. Like, most people in America are for some sort of gun control. But of course, we don't get any of them, even like the ones that are like 80 to 90% approval, because the NRA buys off Republicans to refuse to do that, even though the majority of Americans want it.
Exactly. The American people, in huge numbers, support every type of gun reform short of gun confiscation. That's their position. That's their position. Now, if you want to have a nuanced conversation about the Second Amendment and what is allowed and what is not allowed, I'm open to that conversation. But the conversation they're having is totally disingenuous, acting like all of it is off the table. All of it is unconstitutional, and how dare you bring it up. That is beyond egregious. Because if you truly believe in that, an individual has a natural right to own, any kind of firearm they want, then why do we have the fully automatic weapon ban? Should we allow people to buy fully automatic weapons too? They might say yes to that. Should we allow people to have rocket launchers? Should we allow things more powerful than that? So, look, stop pretending like your interpretation of the Second Amendment is the only reasonable interpretation of the Second Amendment. Things are, sometimes there's a tremendous amount of gray area when talking about the law or talking about Constitution, and they just gloss over all that and say, no, it's an impeachable offense because he talked about doing gun reform that happens to be really fucking popular.
Cope.
What a joke, man. These people are ridiculous. Ever since Ed.
And it also reminds me, too, and I just love it, there was some idiot Republican politician that actually invoked 9/11 for this. Like, when 9/11 happened, we didn't ban airplanes, so why should we ban guns now because of shooting? Well, there's a pretty big difference. One, planes are not designed to kill people like guns are. They were hijacked and used to kill people. Same goes with cars. Cars aren't designed to kill people. They can, but that's not their main purpose. And you know what else? We did do actual regulations after 9/11. Increase airport security, plane security, ban like knives and stuff on planes and stuff like that. So we actually did do stuff after 9/11. But we're not doing it when it comes to guns. So yeah, what do you guys say about all this crap and how stupid Republicans are as always?
It's no surprise. Most Republicans are gun fuckers. So of course they want more guns, more death, more mass shootings because they love they get off on people dying.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. Louis Goldberg actually did a video like, "What do you all think? We're all monsters for not wanting to do anything," or something along that line. You know what I said? Yes, you are a monster. Eat shit. If you don't support any of these gun reform policies, you're just a monster at this point. I'm sorry. You're just wrong. You need to take the L and accept the policies that need to be done. End of discussion. Alright, so now, on to the next topic, which, by the way, you brought up, so maybe you know more about than me.
Johnny Depp-Amber Heard trial.
And since this involves... What?
This has been a hell of a thing. There's a lot of history involved. And yeah, it's going to be quite a while.
Yep, and since I don't know anything about actors, since these two are actors, you're going to have to explain everything.
So Johnny Depp is probably one of the bigger actors in Hollywood, or at least he was. He was in Pirates of the Caribbean. He was in fact the main guy in that series.
I remember seeing the first movie with my mom when it came out in 2003.
He was Grindelwald in the first two Fantastic Beasts movies. Well, Amber Heard's kind of been around. He hooked up for a while, and then broke apart after a few years. Then some time passes, and Amber Heard writes an article about domestic violence and some of the stuff around that. And while it's not explicitly referencing Johnny Depp, it was like
pretty implicating.
Yeah, it was implicating Johnny Depp like by association, almost like implicating that Johnny Depp abused her and hit her and all that. Johnny Depp tried to sue her in the UK and lost, but they both sued each other in America, and Depp majorly won, but Heard got a little victory as well.
They actually won against each other in some ways.
Yeah. I think she did.
Alright, that's pretty funny. So I also found a really good YouTube channel by the name of Legal Eagle, which I watch all the time, and he did a video on it. Where is it at? Here we go. So let's see, as he's an actual lawyer, let's see what a lawyer has to say about this.
Yeah.
We have a verdict in the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard case, and like everything in the trial itself, it's controversial. The jury ruled in favor of Johnny Depp in his libel suit against Amber Heard. Depp sued his former wife for writing about being a domestic abuse victim because he said he never abused her. The jury awarded Depp $15 million in damages, $10 million in compensatory damages, and $5 million in punitive damages. The jury also ruled in favor of Amber Heard on one of her counterclaims against Depp. She alleged that Depp directed a smear campaign against her, having his ex-lawyer saying she fabricated the evidence of her abuse. The jury awarded her $2 million in compensatory damages and nothing in punitives. So at the end of the day, they both win. Hooray! No, but seriously, how can they both have defamed each other? Let's dig into this verdict. Now, first of all, and I hate that I have to say this, no one is going to jail. This is a civil case, and no one is guilty. People are liable in a civil case. They are not guilty or not guilty, despite what some putative law professor has said. This is a civil trial. There's no guilt involved. Now, in fairness, about half the states do have a criminal defamation statute, including Virginia, but this is not one of those cases. It's just two people suing each other. The state is not involved. But as you probably know, here we have two public figures suing each other for defamation, and when you have celebrities, you generally have a higher standard of proof to make your claim. The law makes it difficult for public people to win a defamation suit, even if a published story contains inaccuracies. In order for a public figure to win, the jury has to find that the defendant made statements about them with actual malice. Actual malice means
that's difficult
knowledge
to prove.
of the falsity, or at a minimum, a reckless disregard for the truth of the statement. It has nothing to do with animosity. Now, as you probably know, Amber Heard wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post that contained these sentences. Quote, "Then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. And, quote, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse." Now, Johnny Depp challenged these sentences and also the headline written by the Washington Post itself. Quote, "Amber Heard, I spoke up about sexual violence violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. Depp sued Heard, alleging these sentences were defamatory. And during closing arguments, Heard's lawyer told the jury that if they believe Depp abused her even one time, that he cannot prove defamation.
If Amber was abused by Mr. Depp even one time, then she wins.
Now, during deliberations, the jury had to evaluate the evidence that they heard over the 6-week trial and apply the jury instructions given to them by the judge. With Depp's defamation claims, they were looking at Instruction C, which you can see here. So the jury had to decide whether Heard made or republished any of these statements. These were false statements, whether they harmed his reputation, and whether Amber Heard acted with actual malice. They answered yes. Yes, she said or republished these words. Yes, they were false, and yes, they hurt his reputation. The jury likely decided everything that Amber Heard said about abuse was false, and that she did it with reckless disregard for the truth. And as a result, Johnny Depp sustained about $15 million in damages.
And people act like if women do lie, they get away with it, like with false rape accusations. Remember that crap?
Yeah, some they do, but like
very rare.
It's not as often as it was anymore.
And it's not as often as
a lot often now.
It's not often as the MRAs always think.
$1 million in compensatory damages, which is meant to compensate him for the damage that he actually suffered, as well as $5 million in punitives, that is, to punish Amber Heard for her statements. Now, the judge cut the punitives down to $350,000, bringing the total to $10.35 million. Now, those are obviously large numbers, but it kind of makes sense in the context of Johnny Depp. He is a famous movie star, and he alleges, probably truthfully, that these allegations have really hurt his career and hurt his ability to make millions in...
According to this, he lost up to like $40 million if it's true.
Millions of dollars. So it's entirely possible that he lost $10 million as a result of the statements that Amber Heard made against him. And given the general nature of Heard's statements, the fact that the jury found in Depp's favor probably means that the jury likely didn't believe any of Heard's substantive claims of abuse. Now, some have argued that Heard got a raw deal because her column did not mention Depp by name. But Depp successfully argued that it was an example of what's called defamation by implication, because parts of the column referred to the allegations of abuse that she made against him following their breakup in 2016. And it's probably fair to say that the general public knew about Heard's connection to Depp, and that they would have assumed that the allegations made in the op-ed referred to Depp because of that connection, and that she was directing those statements at Johnny Depp. And there's plenty of law on this. This is not unusual for a defamation by implication case. And that takes us to Amber Heard's counterclaims. You'd think that if Heard defamed Depp, then they would dismiss Heard's claims, and that would be the end of the story. But what fun would that be? As you know, the jury also found that Depp defamed Heard, but it looks like that relates to a statement only tangentially related to the main abuse statements. Now, after Depp sued Heard in 2021, she filed a counterclaim against him. She said that Depp directed his ex-lawyer, Adam Waldman, to make defamatory statements about her, including these three. Statement A, quote, Amber Heard and her friends in the media used fake sexual violence allegations as both a sword and a shield depending on their needs. They have selected some of her sexual violence hoax facts as a sword, inflicting them on the public and Mr. Depp. Statement B, quote, quite simply, this was an ambush, a hoax. They set Mr. Depp up by calling the cops, but the first step didn't do the trick. The officers came to the penthouses, thoroughly searched and interviewed, and left after seeing no damage to face or property. So Amber and her friends spilled a little wine and roughed up the place, got their stories straight under the direction of a lawyer and publicist, and then placed a second call to 911. Statement C, quote, we have reached the beginning of the end of Miss Heard's abuse hoax against Mr. Depp. And the jury reviewed the evidence and, with respect to at least one of these statements, believed that that was the case. Specifically, they decided that Statement B, the long paragraph about a specific incident, was false. The main facts about that incident were relayed to the jury by Heard and her friends, the very same people that the jury found had completely made up things in order to hurt Depp. Now, we'll need to hear from the jury to understand exactly what they were thinking, but we can presume that the jury reviewed the evidence and concluded that Amber Heard and her friends didn't orchestrate an abuse hoax on that occasion. Maybe they didn't spill wine or rough up the place. They didn't work with a lawyer or publicist. They might not have gotten their stories straight. If this is what the jury meant, then they could be claiming that the underlying incident is still based on a lie, but that Heard orchestrated the lie in a different way, or that she was lying about other things and not this thing. But at the end of the day, the jury awarded $2 million to Heard for this particular falsity. These same jurors probably found that she acted with actual malice in concocting a hoax that included fake bruises and fake tears and fake claims, and thus statements A and C were therefore not defamatory, only statement B, which referred to a very specific tangential incident. plaintiff. So both Depp and Heard were awarded compensatory damages. These are things that are meant to compensate a plaintiff to be in the same position that they would be if they weren't injured. Things like financial losses, medical bills, lost income, and reduced earning potential. And a damage award can also consider non-monetary losses as well, like emotional pain or physical pain, loss of companionship. All of those would be considered compensatory damages. But Johnny Depp was awarded punitive damages as well, which are designed to warn others and punish this particular defendant. They are assessed when a jury wants to punish someone who acted totally outside the bounds of appropriate conduct. And they're only available in Virginia if the defendant has acted wantonly, oppressively, or with such malice as to evince a spirit of malice or criminal indifference to civil obligations. But in Virginia, punitive damages are capped at $350,000 by statute. Now, the jury found that Amber Heard had defamed Johnny Depp and that her conduct satisfied the very high standard for punitive damages. Now, they awarded him a lot of money, $5 million in punitive damages, but the judge reduced that damages award to $350,000 as required by statute. Now, the jury wouldn't have known that going into deliberations. That's to make sure that they don't shift all of the punitive damages into the compensatory damages award. But after the verdict was reached, the judge capped the amount that was required by law. Tangentially, you might also hear lawyers referring to the State Farm standard, where punitive damages are capped as a matter of constitutional law. That's a Supreme Court case. That doesn't apply here. There was a specific statute in Virginia that limited punitive damages to $350,000. That doesn't really implicate the State Farm Supreme Court case. That being said, after the punitive damages were capped, Johnny Depp was entitled to $10.35 million. Though Amber Heard was awarded $2 million in compensatory damages related to the Statement B that we just talked about, netting Johnny Depp $8.35 million at the end of the day. So, what's next? Can Johnny Depp sue the Washington Post? Well, sure, but it's incredibly unlikely that he'd win. You can sue anyone for anything at any time. There's no reason to believe that the Washington Post would have known of the falsity of the statements. And on top of that, the Washington Post simply published Amber Heard's article. The only part of the article that was written by the Washington Post was the headline, Amber Heard, I spoke up about sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change, which more or less summarizes the things that Amber Heard actually said. So good luck proving knowledge of falsity or recklessness with respect to the truth by the Washington Post itself. Though given that the article is still online, Depp might sue for an injunction to take that article down. But by that same token, could Amber Heard sue the ACLU? The Washington Post published Heard's op-ed, but the ACLU helped her write it. Heard had promised to donate $7 million from her divorce settlement to two charities, including the ACLU, and so far, she's only paid the ACLU part of that money. Could she claim that they did a bad job of ghostwriting the op-ed? Maybe negligence? Well, again, you can sue anyone for anything at any time. Sure, this is theoretically possible, but it would be extremely complicated and probably doomed, though more tenuous arguments have been made. Maybe Heard will use it to try and claw back some of her donation. Who knows? Complete speculation. But what about an appeal of the jury's verdict? Amber Heard has vowed to appeal, and even though Depp was also found to have defamed Heard, Depp was not surprisingly very pleased with the verdict. Depp said that Heard's op-ed changed his whole life in the blink of an eye, but the jury had given his life back. Now, Heard was not pleased with the verdict and said that she was heartbroken that the mountain of evidence still was not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence, and sway of my ex-husband. And although people talk about what precedent this verdict sets, what lawyers mean by precedent is different from how regular people often use that word. In the law, precedent is set by published judicial opinions. Legally speaking, jury verdicts don't set any precedent whatsoever. You can't cite to the Amber Heard case and hope that some other jury or judge will follow it. But if the case goes up on appeal and there is a written opinion, that opinion would have precedential effect, which is one reason potentially the parties might settle before the appeal is completed. They might just do it to get rid of uncertainty with what the Court of Appeal might or might not do. But no doubt, when this case goes up on appeal, you should read about it in today's sponsor, Morning Brew, because that's my favorite way to catch up with video.
So, since you brought up, what do you have to say about it?
Well, it's good that Johnny Depp was able to get his side of the story out, because that's something that's very difficult for men to do, be able to do. But also, just more generally, the climate around it and call it. Dishonest actors like Ben Shapiro have weaponized it as part of their culture war.
Oh, I've seen the right do this all the time since you just mentioned it too. It's so silly.
And so the backup thing of that would damage, I'd say, any progress that was actually made. Unfortunately.
I just find it funny that they both got successfully sued each other for libel. That's so funny. I've never thought I would ever see that. Both had to face punishment for it. That is unbelievable. So, yeah, that's really weird. That's for damn sure. Alright, now on to the next topic. Is secular talk dying? This actually is a video. I'm not going to play the video on it because it was too long. But Sahil from the Progressive Voice did a video on this. As we know, secular talk is Kyle, which we've watched 2 times already today. An awesome YouTuber I've been watching since 2013. And unfortunately, like the last year or so, his channel has just not been growing. If anything, it's lost subscribers, if you noticed. Like, at its peak, around this time last year, he had like 974,000 subscribers. As of now, it's down to like 970,000. He's lost a lot of subscribers recently. Now, of course, a big chunk of that too was around the time last year when the TYT and Door feud happened. Remember, because he pretty much remember he was like trying to be on the fence with it, and it pissed off both sides. So people left him in both regards. And unfortunately now he's been losing some subscribers lately. As I'm looking on Social Blade right now, he's lost 1K subscribers in the last 30 days. But he still has 970,000. God, remember back several years ago when it actually showed the exact number instead of just a sample of average? Oh boy. Those were the times. So, yeah.
View count it looks like his view count has stabilized. About 1.3 to 1.5 million. So
I'm looking.
Because I'm losing a little bit of relevancy.
Yeah, like around this time in July of 2019, he was getting 13 million, almost 13.8 million views a month. Now it's just 7.6 million in May of this year. So his view total has definitely declined massively in the last few years. Subscribers, like back in July 2019, he got 18,000 subscribers a month. Now he's lost 1,000. In fact, he's gone 3 months straight losing subscribers. Lost 1,000 in March, 2,000 in April, now 1,000 in May. And then, of course, oh boy, yep, there it is. In July of 2021, when the TYT Door thing happened, he lost 7,000 subscribers. Oh my God. That is insane. So, that was the one thing about the TYT and Door feud. Another thing I've seen people talk about is like, Kyle has gotten too stale for them, and he's just boring and all that, and that's why he's subscribing. I don't know about you, but I don't really see him boring whatsoever. He's the same awesome person I've watched since I first saw him in 2013, so I don't see why anyone won't think he's boring or not. So what about you?
Nah, I mean, like, the only argument I could see is that maybe Kyle's a little bit repetitive, but...
Well, yeah, that's what I also meant by boring as well.
It can be a little bit, as I said, a little bit repetitive, but that's about it, really.
I mean, to be fair, like, everyone is repetitive. Hell, we're repetitive a lot of times when we cover topics over and over again. Like, like that's just going to happen. Like, when we watch Mike, or Dole, or other people, it's always going to be, like, repetitive. They're going to talk about pretty much the exact same things and agree on it, whatever. Like, to me, it's just, like, a really dumb criticism in that regard. So, what do you guys say about Kyle's channel? Do you think he's dying?
No. No, I do not think that.
Do you think he'll recover?
No, I'd say he's about where he is.
Yeah, because I'm actually doing the math on this. When he suffered at 7,000 loss, 5, 4, 3, 4. Yeah, he's pretty much down to where he was back in July of last year we had 7,000. He's gained 0 subscribers since I just did the math on it. He's been that stagnant. So he's lost 7,000 subscribers since July of last year, and he hasn't recovered from it, unfortunately. And it really is unfortunate because Kyle is awesome, and I'm not. The only way, I don't know about you, but the only way I would probably ever stop watching Kyle is if he went like full, like hardcore far right or something like that. What about you?
What did you say again? I missed that.
The only way I would probably ever stop watching Kyle is if he went like far right and something like that, like Door. Like, what about you? Is there anything that could make you stop watching Kyle?
Yeah, that'd probably be about the only way at this point.
Yeah, because Kyle is based.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately, he is stagnant the last several years in terms of his subscribers, but I don't think he's dying, and he's not bad. He's awesome, pretty much. And it's probably just Sahil being the progressive TMZ as someone I used to watch set of him before.
Hey, he found his brand, and he's sticking with it.
Yep. So yeah, come on, Kyle, recover. You need to get that 1 million subscribers. It's been way too long, and keep making awesome content. So now, and speaking of which, we're going to be watching Kyle again now because we got to cover next video. And it's the wrong reason to go after Rashida Tlaib. As we've brought her up before, she's a part of the squad and the Progressive Caucus and all that. And unfortunately, she's really, really, really disappointed like the last year or so. Cucking on the Build Back Better thing. And also the thing that really pissed us off is when her and the Progressive Caucus didn't endorse Nina last month. Yeah. That was completely horseshit.
Yeah, dude, you're basically corporate Democrats at that point. Sorry, Nina Turner is a what was it again?
Progressive.
Is a metric for if you're a progressive or if you're corporate.
Yeah, there's no option. You support Nina Turner, that is the end of it. So, of course, you even brought up that maybe we should consider primarying her and other progressives if they're not going to do their job and grow a spine. Well, someone actually went up to bat and considered supporting someone to primary her. But it's for the wrong reason. A reason so bad that if anything, it's going to have to force us to defend her, and we really don't want to do it, but this is just really bad. So time to watch Kyle again on this, as this is disgusting.
All right, so it looks like one of the members of the squad is being targeted by corporate Democrats. Political reports here, Scoop, packed to spend $1 million to oust squad member Tlaib.
Like the last people that should be trying to primary her. The only one she should be primaried is by us progressives. That's it. None of you fuckers, because you're going to pick someone who's way worse.
You can see Bakari Sellers here. He endorsed this pack. Let me read you what it says here. A new pack endorsed by Bakari Sellers says it's going to spend upward of $1 million to support one of the candidates trying to unseat progressive firebrand Rashida Tlaib. The stated mission of the group, Urban Empowerment Action PAC, is to back candidates who are dedicated to the educational empowerment and economic uplift of black communities, according to a release first shared with Politico's The Recast. The PAC adds that its support of Janice Winfrey, the Detroit city clerk, is meant to boost her campaign to restore infrastructure, improve educational opportunities in the district, and support the Biden-Harris agenda in D.C. What agenda? They're not doing anything. The group is made up of a coalition of black and Jewish business leaders. For her part, Tlaib has been unequivocal in her disdain for Israel and its treatment of Palestinians, and this week introduced a resolution in the House to recognize the Palestinian Nakba, a term describing the displacement of Palestinians ahead of the 1948 establishment of Israel. Tlaib, one of the most liberal and outspoken members of the House Democratic Caucus, has also been a persistent critic of President Joe Biden, delivering her own rebuttal to his State of the Union address in March. She was also a no vote on Biden's bipartisan infrastructure bill that was signed into law at the end of last year.
Hey, she actually was part of the people that said we're not going to vote for it if you don't do what we want. So, hey, go to her in that regard.
Now, what they don't tell you is...
And then 13 Republicans literally just voted for it.
Is what? The reason why she voted no is because she stuck true to the original deal that everybody was supposed to stick to.
Yeah, something
the deal was, we're only going to vote for the traditional infrastructure bill if the conservative Democrats vote for Build Back Better. because Build Back Better had universal pre-K and elder care and lower prescription drug prices and Medicare expansion and extended child tax credit. It had all these wonderful provisions, and the left's negotiating tactic was, yes, we'll vote for your traditional infrastructure bill if and only if Sinema, Manchin, and the corporate Democrats in the House vote for Build Back Better, which is the real piece of legislation that's good, whereas the infrastructure one is not nearly enough, and a lot of it is corporate giveaways, etc. So Rashida Tlaib did the right thing, and then in the end, only 6 Democrats stuck true to their word. And a lot of them were squad members. And they were like, look, we're not going to vote for this because you guys are going back on your word. And it turns out they were right. Because Manchin said, oh, just vote for the bill, and then eventually we'll fix Build Back Better, and I'll vote for it. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen. So they were right, and they're using that against her in this article. The fact that she was right is being used against her. It's unbelievable.
Corporate Democrat article.
Oh, they do go on to explain it, thankfully. The two-term congresswoman said she voted against it because Democrats were reneging on a promise to pass the legislation alongside an expansive climate and social spending bill, commonly referred to as Build Back Better. By separating the two, she argued progressives lost their leverage, and to date, Build Back Better remains stalled, so she was correct. Bakari Sellers, the television pundit who is a former South Carolina state representative, is fundraising for the PAC. He says he wants to see the size of the Congressional Black Caucus increase in the next Congress, and explains the PAC's endorsement of Winfrey this way. We are hoping that we can have a candidate that doesn't have varying distractions, he tells the recast. Winfrey is black, while Tlaib is Palestinian American. When asked to comment on UEA's endorsement, Denzel McCampbell, a spokesperson for Tlaib's re-election campaign, said the representative is battle-tested. He called on Winfrey to disavow the PAC spending. Outside Super PAC ads do not win elections, direct voter contact does. If our opponent truly does care about our democracy, I hope that she will immediately disavow and condemn this type of big money attack on our democracy that only seeks to mislead voters and distort reality, McCampbell said. The UEA's endorsement comes amid fears that Detroit, the nation's largest majority black city, may not have a single black representative in the next Congress with the retirement of Representative Brenda Lawrence.
So what? Who cares? So what? Who cares? As long it shouldn't be the race that matters. It should matter if they're progressive or not. So if you have a non-white, non-black, but they're progressive, that's a good thing. So it doesn't matter what the race is. Like, stop making it pull out of nothing.
Let me explain something. That's not why they're doing what they're doing here. They are using identity politics to distract from their real agenda, which is to get a black lawmaker in there who will represent the corporations and the status quo, and more importantly, will not be pro-Palestinian human rights as aggressively as Rashida Tlaib is.
The Palestinians.
Yeah, that is one thing Tlaib is based on. Support of the Palestinians as they're being discriminated, oppressed, and genocided by Israel. Absolutely disgusting anyone could be against her support for that.
That's what this is about. And it's the oldest trick in the book. Democrats know they're not going to win that debate on the merits. Corporate Democrats are not going to win that debate on the merits. The rah-rah Israel's always right argument. So instead, they're dodging. And the dodge is, no, the reason why we're backing this candidate is because this candidate's black and we want the black person to represent the majority black area. So if you're against this, hey, maybe you're questionable. Maybe you need to check your privilege.
Good old,
and maybe race is playing a role as to why you oppose this candidate. It's a dodge. It's the identity politics dodge. When the reality is they are targeting Rashida Tlaib because of her record on Israel and because she's a fierce advocate for Palestinian human rights. And many in the Democratic Party do not want that. And you have big money backers here who are pro-Israel, along with Bakari Sellers, trying to unseat her. So, I mean, look, this is reason number 5,412 that the members of the squad need to wake the hell up. Because they've tried in a number of ways to play nice with the
you can't
Democratic
ever
leadership.
play nice
And
to these people.
this is what
you
happens
have to
anyway.
crush down.
Regardless of how much...
You've got to attack and abuse them. You've got to slam and defame them 28,417.
Vosh would be very triggered by it, but oh well, you need to never see...
He's a more than a corporate Democrat himself.
You can never be nice to these people. You have to do nothing but crush them.
But you try to
They're
help
enemies
other
just like
lefties...
Republicans are.
Or not,
yes,
they're going to do this.
to go a little overboard to do it, just do what Trump did and never apologize. Never apologize, even when you attack them, it's a smear. Don't apologize.
This to you.
It's all about damaging corporate Democrats as much as possible.
Yep, they have to go.
You should just go all in on doing the right thing, because then at least you'll be able to sleep at night. Like Nina Turner, for example, was abandoned by virtually everybody. At the like a day before the election, AOC was like, "Yeah, I endorse Nina Turner."
Too fucking late.
Where was Rashida Tlaib? Where was Cori Bush? Where was the rest of them? My guess is they were threatened behind the scenes by leadership. Hey, if you support her, it's a wrap for you, and we're going to have everybody come out and endorse against you in the next race. So meanwhile, even though they played nice, even though they didn't endorse Nina Turner, what happened? Oh, it looks like they're still coming after you, Rashida Tlaib. It looks like it didn't matter what you said or what you did. They had a target on your back. Because they don't like anybody who deviates from the corporate Democratic line even 1%. And these people deviate more than 1%. So, this is the problem. There's a civil war in the Democratic Party. And one side is unified. And they are ready. And they acknowledge that we're in a civil war right now in the Democratic Party. And then the other side sticks their head in the sand and pretends there's not even a civil war. And tries to go along to get along. Well, guess which side is going to win that war? The one that's more organized and more fierce and more vicious and is willing to send the cavalry to back each other up. Whereas Nina got left high and dry.
Yep.
I want to say, what did you learn to these people, but that presupposes they'll ever be able to learn. I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure about that. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like...
And of course, we need to keep getting more progressives in. So, yeah, what do you guys say about this?
You're primary Rashida Tlaib for the wrong reason.
Yeah. So, for anyone...
She's one of you guys, corporate Democrats. Jeez, seriously. She's one of you guys now. It's just that she has some progressive policies and she doesn't take corporate hate money, but she's still, by and large, a corporate Democrat now. Most of the squad, the grift squad, as I call them now, as I consider them basically grifters, and so they just don't care. They just don't thing.
Yeah, if you're gonna, if any of you are if you live in Tlaib's district, you have to make sure she wins against this primary. We cannot, if she's gonna lose a primary, it must be to an actual progressive, not corporate Democrats like these pieces of shit.
Because he's just gonna make things worse. Because they literally, as I've said, the Justice Democrats failed because they weren't hard enough.
Yep.
I think this People Party movement is going to fail because they're going to be too hard. One deviation from their line of killing cops, executing Anthony Fauci, blowing up the CDC, blowing up killing everyone who worked for the CIA, killing everyone who worked for the other thing.
Sounds like Harry's wet dream.
Yeah, well, it would be. He loves...
and he does act like that. Because you are a shit lib, remember?
Shit libtard fag who supports blowing up the planet.
So yeah, if you're all in Tlaib's district, for the love of God, please support her against this one. And then hopefully if we get an actual progressive challenger, then we can maybe primary. But right now, this is not the time to replace her with a corporate Democrat. So support her at all costs, because this is the absolute wrong reason to take her out. So yeah, now on to the final topic, which this has been a few weeks ago and I hadn't even watched the video yet. Biden maybe finally did some sort of student debt relief, question mark?
No, he won't do it.
Well, we'll see.
All right, guys, so we have a new update on the student loan debt situation. This is an update that I seem to be giving once every couple weeks or so, because there's new articles all the time on this stuff. Biden zeroes in on plan to cancel $10,000 in student loans per borrower. President Biden is nearing a decision on student loan debt forgiveness, with the president and his team zeroing in on canceling $10,000 per borrower, with some potential caveats, means tested. White House officials caution no decision has been finalized as Biden continues to weigh his options. The president is scheduled to speak at the Naval Academy's commencement ceremony on Friday, at the University of Delaware ceremony on Saturday. Multiple reports indicated Biden considered using the weekend commencement ceremonies to announce some student debt forgiveness, with the Washington Post reporting the timing was changed in the wake of a school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, that left 19 children dead. A White House official disputed that was the case, however. Quote, "No decisions have been made yet, but as a reminder, no one has been required to pay a single dime of student loans since the president took office," Deputy Press Secretary Vedant Patel said. Multiple sources told The Hill in late April that Biden was looking at canceling at least $10,000 in student debt, and indications are the White House appears to have settled on that number even as they work through potential limits on who the loan cancellation would benefit.
And this failed account cover was back on May 27th. I'm actually looking up on the phone right now to see if he actually did or not, and I've actually seen inconsistent things saying that he still has not done it yet and is still undecided, to other things saying no, he did do it. So I don't know what to say.
Benefit. The Washington Post reported Friday that the latest iteration of...
What?
He won't. I don't think he'll do it.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't either.
The plan called for capping the debt forgiveness to individuals who earned less than $150,000 last year, or $300,000 for married couples. It is also unclear if the cancellation would apply to all student loan debt or just undergraduate students. Biden in the 2020 campaign supported for giving at least $10,000 in federal student loans per person, after several other candidates made student loan forgiveness a key part of their platforms. Since taking office, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer have repeatedly pushed Biden on the issue, insisting it would provide immediate relief to minorities and low- and middle-income families. Schumer has called for canceling up to $50,000 in student debt per borrower. While that large sum has been publicly ruled out, Biden has, in recent weeks, made increasingly clear he is prepared to provide some student debt forgiveness. Quote, "I am not considering $50,000 debt reduction, but I'm in the process of taking a hard look at whether or not there will be additional debt forgiveness, and I'll have an answer on that in the next couple of weeks," Biden said on April 28th, days after he reportedly told members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus he was open to forgiving some student loans. The White House has yet to give an updated timeline in the month since Biden said a decision was a couple weeks out. It's a classic Trump-like move. We're going to have an answer in a couple weeks, maybe. But officials have pointed to actions that have helped student loan borrowers over the past year and a half. Biden last month extended the pandemic moratorium on federal student loan payments and interest accrual through August. Loan payments were first paused in March 2020, early in the pandemic, under then-President Trump, and the moratorium has been extended multiple times since. The White House has repeatedly said Biden is prepared to sign legislation canceling student loan debt, but in the meantime is weighing what authority the president has to unilaterally wipe out some debt. Now, a report came out, by the way, that said whether or not Biden can eliminate it through executive order, and they redacted the entire thing. You want to know why they redacted it? Because the report said you absolutely can, and he didn't want people to know that he had that power. And so he's been dodging by saying, if Congress sends it to my desk, I'll sign it. Yeah, but you have the authority to do it already on your own. There was I think it was 1963 or 1964 or 5 Higher Education Act, and under that, the Secretary of Education, at the behest of the president, has the ability, if they want, to totally wipe the debt slate clean. Conservative critics have pushed for student loan payments to resume, arguing the moratorium has cost the federal government billions of dollars, and that any widespread forgiveness would disproportionately benefit wealthy Americans. That is total BS. A study from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget found that roughly 75% of students...
They will be friggin'... They'll need the loans.
Yeah, if you're rich, you don't need the loans in the first place. And you know what else? I don't care if it helps the wealthy. You shouldn't have to pay to go to college. End of discussion. No matter
loan
what.
Repayments come from the top 40% of earners. What they don't tell you is that the bottom 90% in our current system are barely scraping by. There was a poll that came out, this is before the pandemic, about 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
So this idea that, it's disproportionately going to affect the wealthy. No, you know what really happens with the real wealthy, the upper middle class and the rich? Their parents pay for their schooling, pay for their higher education. that's what happens when you come from money. You don't take out student loans. So it's mostly impacting poor people, middle-class people, and people who might fall in that upper middle-class zone, but they still live paycheck to paycheck, and they don't come from real wealth. So, and by the way, even if it does forgive loans for some people who are really wealthy, I don't care. Really wealthy people get Social Security too. Does that mean I want to make Social Security not universal and turn it into means tested by income? No, I don't want to do that. The whole purpose of a universal program is that it is not a welfare program, so that everybody gets it, everybody benefits from it. And so then it's much more politically potent, because if you take it away, you have to take it away from everybody. That's why the right loves means testing stuff, and corporate Democrats love means testing stuff, because then it's more likely to end eventually, because it'll get lambasted as this is welfare. And welfare does not poll nearly as high as universal broad-based programs. So, and by the way, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget it's a right-wing group. So I don't even trust the numbers that they have here. 40% repayments come from 40%, the top 40% of earners. That's nonsense. The wealthy and the upper middle class who are financially secure, they have their parents pay for their student loans. So, God, it's so obnoxious. The idea that you try to portray a policy that would absolutely help working people as like, you're just trying to benefit the rich. It's the dumbest thing I can imagine, and it's so disingenuous. They know they can't win on the merits of the actual conversation, so they just pretend that people who want to eliminate student loan debt are like, you only want to help the wealthy. This is coming from people who their only policy that they always come back to is let's cut taxes for the rich.
Wealthy.
You know? So, by the way, if student loan debt elimination actually only impacted the rich, they would support it, because they're in favor of giving all the welfare in the world to the rich and every corporate subsidy. They want socialism for the corporations and the rich. They want them to loot the treasury. They just don't want the poor and the middle class.
And the working class people to be slaves, and anyone on welfare to die in concentration camps.
To get any of the benefits. So anyway, back to Biden. So I predicted this. I said, here's what Joe Biden's going to do. He's either going to do nothing. He's not going to cancel any student loan debt. Or he'll do whatever the minimum is. 10,000 is the minimum that's on the table. And he'll means test it. It appears like that's exactly where he's falling. He's falling on the side of, let's do 10,000 and means test it. And he keeps postponing it. There was an article the other day that we covered where it said he's agonizing over the decision.
Yeah, he's not going to do
over
it.
Eliminating student loan debt.
He's
Look,
not doing it. He won't spend a single cent. Mansion and Cinema will tell him no. And if it gets through the House, it's going to die in the Senate because of Mansion and Cinema.
Principle. We shouldn't have student loan debt. Look at the way that we fund elementary school and middle school and high school in this country. It's just paid for by tax dollars. And so people don't go into debt to get educated. Well, now a college degree is what a high school degree used to be. To get a shot at a decent job, you need to have a college degree. So it's just continuing with the same framework and mold that's been laid out for elementary school, middle school, and high school. It should be free at the point of service, paid for by taxes. And by the way, you should get an option. Either free college or free trade school. So you could, specialize in something specific so that, you can earn a living however you feel is appropriate. So what would be the political fallout if Biden were to do this? If Biden were to do this, here's my guess. The right would all flip out and say he's helping the rich by doing one of the only things he's ever done that's helped working people. They will continue to pretend like this is a giveaway to the top 1% or something. And you're going to have, so they're going to flip out. They're going to have the left base is going to say,
that's it. Flip the fuck out.
you're only going to give $10,000 in student loan debt reduction. That's it. And they're going to say, not enough. It's not enough. People are still going to struggle. It's just simply not enough. And your incrementalism is part and parcel of the problem of the Democratic Party, and it's pathetic. It's pathetic. Why are you trying to walk the line between the right thing and the wrong thing? Split the difference between the right thing and the wrong thing. Just do the right thing, which would be full student debt elimination. So that's
the wrong thing.
Huh?
Splitting the difference between the right thing and the wrong thing is often still the wrong thing.
It's going to be the response from the left and the right. But I will say probably from most people, they're just going to support what he does here. And independent people, apolitical people, people who are moderate Democrats, who don't follow this stuff all
I'm
that
sure most
closely.
Democrats
Say,
support
okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so my guess is, if he were to do this, he would get a slight bump in the polls.
He won't do it. I don't think he will do it.
Maybe 4%, 5% in the polls.
I think it's way too big of a bump if he did do it.
It would be a popular thing, even though the right would flip out and the left would say this isn't anywhere near enough. But look, it has to be said, if he were to do 50,000 in student debt elimination, it would be even more popular. You get a 6 or 7 point bump. If you were to eliminate student loan debt, maybe he gets an 8 point bump or a 9 point bump. And you'd have the right get really pissed at him, but basically everybody else in the country, including the left base, would be like, based Biden. This is awesome. So, look, I said it before, I'll say it again. It's better than nothing, but it's time for big, bold change, real transformation and reform that tries to ameliorate.
Yep, that's the problem. That's
go back on it in a couple of months.
That's
say, no, we're not going to do any student debt relief.
Yep, and that's why all you Democrats that voted in the 2020 primary, you should have went for Bernie, because he would have done something. Because you were wrong.
Both shitheads and a lot of the doorknobs. Because a lot of the doorknobs didn't vote for Bernie either. They voted for Warren and Yang.
Or didn't vote at all.
Yeah,
some extreme wealth and income inequality in this system.
And one thing that I'm equally pissed at both Dorr and Bush for. It's like, guys, the fuck?
They're both stupid. We all know that, though.
Yeah.
Giving people who are in student loan debt more purchasing power and giving them a better chance at a brighter future and more disposable income, I think that's nothing but positive, regardless how they try to fudge the numbers to say, oh, you're only helping the wealthy. So anyway, there you have it. Looks like he's settling on 10,000. You take that news however you'd like. If you want to see me...
And of course, like I said, I've seen inconsistent things that either he's done it or he's not. So I don't know what to say. But of course, you're in the camp that you think he's not going to do it at all. I'm more of I don't know. Let's wait and see. But maybe he won't do it. Maybe he will do it. We just don't know yet. But you never know, because he is a senile old man that always bucks the pressure as always.
He's a brain dead, doddering fool. So
careful,
no, he's
Jake.
A brain dead, doddering fool being kept alive by the dark side of the Force, just like much of the Republican Party.
Jake and Hannah will call you ableist for saying he's brain dead. Remember? How could you?
Even though they're the ableist ones.
All right. Yep. All right, guys. So that will wrap it up here. See you guys next time for episode 52. So see you guys next time.